Hey super friends, my name is Neil and welcome to this brand new video where we're going to be diving in deep on some major spoilers from Warner Brothers and Matt Reeves' The Batman. Before we continue, The Batman is now in UK cinemas, but if you have not seen it, then I stress that you probably should not watch the rest of this video with the tiny little cat that's just lurking in the corner, because we are going to be discussing some major plot points from the film. So if you have not seen it, then you maybe don't want to come back after the credits. Before we get started, if you like our content, then make sure to head over to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button. And if you really like this video, then please give us a thumbs up because it means that more people will get to see that we're working on much more video content this year. But without further ado, The Batman is now in UK cinemas and we know exactly what director Matt Reeves has been cooking up for the last couple of years. We now know that Robert Pattinson is both a badass Batman and a brilliant Bruce Wayne. But what about that mystery character being played by Eternal star Barry Keoghan? Well, as the cast list said, the unseen Arkham prisoner has now been revealed, and we know that he is very much not unseen in his one scene, but he is in fact another live-action incarnation of the Joker. It's not a massive surprise, it's been a rumour that's gone around the internet for a while now, but at least we have now had a chance to see him, to hear him, and to understand a little bit about his character. If you want to read my full thoughts on this, by the way, head over to our website, which is www.getyourcomiccon.co.uk, where you can read my full piece on what I think this might mean for the future. But for now, let's talk about that particular scene. So it starts with an establishing shot inside Arkham. We see that Nashton is in his cell, that's Paul Dano's version of the Riddler, and we can see that there are other cells lined around him, and that one of those does also include another inmate. To begin with, Nashton is consoling himself over his defeat at the hands of Batman. His whole plan for Gotham has been ruined. And he's very much left in pieces by the fact that Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne did not live up to what he expected of him as a character. That moment is broken by a kind of whispering voice from the cell next to him from unseen Arkham prisoner, as he begins to give him some words of wisdom over Gotham and the fact that the city loves a kind of redemption story and a return. As the two kind of interact, we can see that Nashton is kind of galvanised by this, and the Riddler persona begins to take back over even without the mask, and it brings him to a place where he's able to kind of laugh it off, and there's clearly a future for Paul Dano as the Riddler which may reach beyond this film, and that's probably a video for another day. Then we actually get our first look at unseen Arkham prisoner in his cell. Now we see him through the glass pane in the door, so we don't have a kind of full clear shot of his face. It's not quite frosted glass, but it's not fully kind of transparent either. There's an effect between us and him, which means we're not kind of seeing him as you are seeing me right now. We're able to see that he doesn't have bright green hair, his hair is dishevelled, but we also don't know how long he's been in this cell. But we are able to see that the side of his face which is closest to the camera is somewhat scarred into the smiling position, and there is definitely some makeup effect which is going on there. In fact, at first when I saw this film, I did wonder whether this was Two-Face and that we'd all been completely wrong all this time. But by the end of the scene, the two inmates are laughing hysterically with each other, and it's abundantly clear that Keoghan is playing the Joker. First of all, we need to understand potentially the connections that this might have to the past. So how did this version of the Joker end up in this cell? There is a precedent here for Matt Reeves reaching deep into the comic book origins of the characters in the Batman to tell those stories in a slightly new and interesting way. So for instance, he pulls from The Long Halloween for the fact that Selina Kyle is the daughter of Carmine Falcone. So could he look to The Killing Joke to tell the origin of the Joker that ties back to the Red Hood? Is there a story that could feature in HBO Max's GCPD series, where we go back to year one of Batman, where this version of Batman in his first days as a vigilante comes across the Red Hood gang trying to break into Axis Chemicals. One of those people falls into a vat of acid and ends up with the scars on the face that we see in this scene in the Batman. So there is potential for that story to unravel on film, or in an HBO Max series. Now the reason why I wonder whether it could be in that is because it would take time away from any potential runtime in the Batman 2, or whatever it would be called, from telling an origin story. Reeves could use this wider world and these different multimedia ways of telling the story to bring in the origin of the Joker to not eat up his runtime, much as he did here with the origin of Batman. Because it's a story that's well known, perhaps he wants to stay away from that, but is not against that being told elsewhere. Likewise, I wonder how this could potentially tie into Colin Farrell's Penguin series, which has also been mooted for HBO Max. Given that the conversation between Nashton and unseen Arkham prisoner kind of lingers on the idea of redemption, and redemption for a villain, as it were. and a kind of comeback story. Could we be leading towards a prison break that could be seen in a future sequel, or potentially in Penguin's HBO Max series? Now, we don't know much about that series. It could be an origin story for him that tells his story up to where he is in the Batman, but that would then potentially overlap with what's happening in the GCPD show. So perhaps could a Penguin story fill in the gap between The Batman and The Batman 2, or whatever it might be called, by detailing how Penguin rises to take over the Falcone family after the death of Carmine, while simultaneously dealing with the aftermath of the events of the Batman on the City and leading to the outbreak of inmates from Arkham. There are very different potential ways that they could pull this story in the future. I think it's safe to say that Paul Dano is not finished playing the Riddler, and that the conversation between the two of them potentially could lead to a team-up. Plenty of precedent for this in comic book movies, particularly Batman movies. You have Penguin and Catwoman in Batman Returns, you have Riddler himself and Two-Face in Batman Forever, and of course Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze in Batman and Robin. Yes, they may not be great examples of Batman movies, but there is certainly a precedent of escalation from a first film into sequels, and how that can have an impact. So perhaps a team-up between Joker and Riddler in the future is on the cards here, with Riddler out of Arkham and wanting to continue ridding the city of corruption. Maybe Joker can play into that to his own fiendish games. Something else which I think is important to note here is the fact that having the two villains team up and the threat that could pose to Batman and to Gotham could be exactly what's needed to bring Zoe Kravitz's version of Selina Kyle back into the film. So again, if you've seen the film, you'll know that at the end she kind of rides off into the sunset on her motorcycle and is not wholly intent on returning to Gotham anytime soon. So perhaps the potential for having to deal with two villains teamed up could be what's needed to drag her back into the fold again for a future sequel. Veering into a wild kind of theory territory for a moment, but we have a Joker and we have an Arkham. So could we perhaps in the future see a Dr. Harleen Quinzel in Matt Reeves' universe? Is there a story here for what's been going on at Arkham around, the events of GCPD, Penguin, and what's happening in the movies? It could be really interesting to see what he would do with a version of Harley Quinn in his world. It feels like the kind of place where she really could be a kind of pure version of herself from both the comics and what we know of her from her origin in cartoons and other media. So I'd be really interested to see that. Would you be interested to see that? What are your theories on this version of the Joker? Let us know in the comments, or find us on social media at Get Your Comic On and let us know. But I think for now, we just have to leave it that we have seen him, there is a design, Matt Reeves clearly has a plan, which is very, very exciting, and I absolutely cannot wait to see more. If you want to read my review of the Batman, then head over to our website and you can check it out, or you can watch the video version right here on our channel. But until next time, bye! Thanks for watching, Super Friends. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button just down below and hit the bell so that you can get notified whenever we release brand new videos. In fact, there's 2 more waiting for you to watch right here below. So what are you waiting for? Why not click play?